Now, Paris has consistently ranked as one of the most attractive cities in the world. Barcelona was up there too for 2025, as well as Bangkok. But to talk about what destinations could top the list for this coming year, we're joined by Carl Cater, Associate Professor in Tourism at Swansea University. Thank you so much for joining us, Carl. What are you expecting the most popular destinations of 2026 to be? And are there any that might be surprising to us?
Well, I think I think you're right, in saying that obviously Paris and Barcelona and some of these major cities are still going to be the ones that attract all the tourists. I've just spent the day up in London, and it's absolutely heaving up here. People going to all the museums and sites. So we're not going to see, this thing called over-tourism end. I think people still want to go to the traditionally popular sites, and indeed it's because they do things well. You mentioned France, of course, that is always perennially popular and at the top of the leaderboard in terms of its tourism product. But I think people are searching for perhaps more experiential tourism, and stuff that maybe is a little bit more meaningful. So perhaps traveling a little bit more locally, also engaging with community-based tourism. We're seeing some new destinations coming on board. So places like Albania now is developing quickly. Perhaps further afield, there's a conference in Mongolia in summer that I think will be, shows that whole area of Central Asia is going to be a popular destination. And then I think, of course, we've got the World Cup in the United States in the summer. Obviously, there's a lot of American operators there who are going to be desperate to turn around what is quite a bad year for them in the US with restrictions on travel and tariffs and all of those aspects. And hopefully the World Cup is an opportunity to put the US back on the global stage.
We know that the latest season of White Lotus, for example, meant that even more tourists flocked to Thailand in 2025. Are we seeing trends like these emerge more and more? And can we expect similar trends maybe for the coming year?
Well, film tourism, again, has been with us a long time. We look back to Thailand and the beach. I don't know, some of our older watching remember Leonardo DiCaprio. That boosted a whole, people searching for that Thailand paradise. And as you said, White Lotus was another sort of trend. So, yeah, looking for the latest sort of movies, certainly those can create quite a boom. But I think as well, what we're really hoping, listening to your headlines, is that 2026 brings a bit more stability to the world. Let's hope for an end to conflict in the Middle East and also in Russia, and that will, tourists are always looking for much more stable places to visit. So let's hope that those destinations now come back on board.
What about potentially luxurious, off the beaten track destinations? And in the past, we've had places like maybe Iceland or Namibia that people are going to more now. Where's somewhere people who maybe are looking to go next year for that sense of exclusivity, or is that just impossible these days?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be the influence of like the media and our influencers who, push us to go to exotic and different places. Are out in the wilds of Iceland or Norway. There was everybody flocking to a particular mountain in Norway a few years back. But remember, the world is a big place, and I've been very lucky to travel quite a lot. But I always know that I'll never be able to visit everywhere. So there's always a quiet spot if you're willing to find it and to slow down and talk to communities and to support particularly community-based tourism, and encourage that interaction with your hosts and to learn about the hosts that are hosting you. And let's not forget, I mean, I think it was John Paul, one of the previous popes, who said that tourism was the biggest opening door to peace. So actually, I think if the more that we can travel and meet other cultures, that we can understand we're all together on this.
In that same vein of of slowing down, do you think are we expecting people to fly as much as they did this year or in previous years, or are people being a bit more eco-conscious about the way they travel?
Unfortunately, there are obviously a lot of efforts to try and decarbonize the aviation sector with sustainable fuels coming online now, but it's probably the most difficult sector to create as a more sustainable transport forms. I can't realistically see any major decline in aviation. I think that the demand is there, particularly since COVID, and we want to travel and see the world. I'm not expecting to see a major downturn in aviation anytime soon. But let's hope that some of those more sustainable movements are actually going to encourage different transport forms.
You touched on over tourism a little bit. We know that cities like Venice, try to limit the amount of people that visit every year. How big is the issue really?
It is huge, when you are seeing a real pushback, particularly from residents of those cities, of places like Venice and Barcelona, which have essentially become sort of museums for the tourists, and local people can't afford to live in those cities and to find accommodation and to shop and live in those cities, and yet they're the people who needed to work within the tourism industry as well. So it's sort of a catch-22. Um, I think better management of demand, I suppose, and governments working in terms of how to make sure that people can visit at different times, I think is an important thing.
If you had one piece of advice to give someone who's looking for maybe somewhere not too expensive, maybe an eco-friendly way to go on a nice holiday, what's the secret? What are your tips?
I think looking locally certainly is a way of understanding, where you're from. Certainly is a budget saving thing, albeit, I think you do want to encourage your wide horizons. I think the top tip, though, I would say, and we've seen this a couple of times this year, with people watching influencers and thinking, oh, that's a fantastic thing to do. I think people really need to make sure that they've got the skills and are well prepared, because we've seen mountain groups in China, in the Everest region, but even here in the UK with young men going up into Snowdonia and the mountains, just not being prepared, not having the right skills to, enjoy those experiences. And let's not forget, learning a skill is actually probably as enlightening, transformative as the travel itself. So see it as a journey, not just a destination.